No one in that courtroom could have predicted what was about to happen. What was meant to be a routine custody hearing, quiet, procedural, and controlled, turned into one of the most explosive moments in Martell Holt's public life. The cameras may not have been rolling, but those who were there say the tension was electric. Martell, once known for his calm confidence on love and marriage, Huntsville reached his breaking point. His voice, once smooth and composed, cracked with frustration as years of anger, heartbreak, and humiliation came pouring out. Lawyers froze. The judge's gavel hit the desk, but it didn't stop him. He wasn't just defending himself, he was fighting to be heard. But the real shock didn't come from Martell's words. It came from what happened next, the moment the Guardian Ad Litem, the one person meant to stay neutral, looked up from her notes with tears in her eyes and said something that would leave the entire courtroom in stunned silence. To understand why this courtroom eruption hit so hard, you have to understand who Martell Holt is and what he's been through. Once the polished, charismatic face of love and marriage, Huntsville, Martell built a reputation as the picture-perfect husband, entrepreneur, and father. But behind the cameras, his world was unraveling. His marriage to Melody Shari, once celebrated as a power couple built on ambition and love, began to crumble under the weight of betrayal, pride, and public exposure. What started as whispers of infidelity soon became headlines. And Martell's name, once tied to success, became tangled in scandal. The two went from business partners to bitter exes, their personal pain unfolding under the unforgiving glare of reality TV. And when their marriage finally ended, the courtroom became the last battlefield, not over fame or money, but over their children. Every hearing, every document, every word carried emotional weight. For Martell, this wasn't just legal, it was personal. He wasn't just fighting for custody, he was fighting for redemption. And that's what made this particular day in court so explosive, because beneath the polished suits and calm statements, there was a man struggling to prove he was more than the mistakes that broke him. It started with a question, a simple, procedural question, but to Martell Holt, it felt like a dagger. The courtroom had been tense all morning. Every word weighed like evidence in a trial of hearts. When the opposing attorney pressed him about his parenting, about his ability to provide a stable emotional environment for his children, something in Martell snapped. His jaw tightened, his eyes flared, and the calm mask he'd held for months cracked open. "You think I don't love my kids?" he shot back, his voice echoing through the chamber. The judge's gavel slammed once order in the court, but Martell couldn't stop. Years of judgment, gossip, and humiliation poured out at once. He spoke about sleepless nights, about feeling like the world had already decided who he was, about being painted as a villain in a story he barely recognized. His voice trembled between rage and heartbreak. Some in the audience shifted uncomfortably, others couldn't look away. It wasn't the voice of a celebrity anymore, it was the raw, unfiltered cry of a father who felt misunderstood. The air grew thick, papers rustled. The Guardian Ad Litem, the court-appointed advocate for the children, looked up, her face pale, eyes wide. She'd seen emotions before, but this was different. Martell wasn't shouting to win, he was shouting from pain. His words cracked, his breathing uneven, and for a moment, the courtroom wasn't a courtroom. It was a battlefield of love, loss, and desperation. The judge leaned forward, his tone stern but softening, recognizing that this wasn't just an outburst. It was a breaking point, and in that silence that followed, everyone felt it. The raw truth of a man finally shattering under the weight of his own image. For a few seconds after Martell's outburst, the courtroom was frozen, not a sound, not a breath. The energy in the room had shifted completely. Everyone could feel it. What had begun as another legal proceeding now felt like something much deeper, a man unraveling. A father pleading not with words, but with emotion. The Guardian Ad Litem, whose role was to remain neutral and focused only on the children's best interests, slowly looked up from her notes. Her face told the story before she even spoke. Shock, disbelief, and something else. Empathy. It was as if she had seen past the public image, past the headlines, and glimpsed the wounded man beneath the surface. When she finally stood to address the court, her voice trembled just slightly. "Your Honor," she began carefully, glancing toward Martell. "I have never seen this level of emotional distress in a custody case. This is not anger, this is pain. Deep pain, whatever the public may think of Mr. Holt. What I'm seeing right now is a father who loves his children." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even the judge leaned back, visibly taken aback by her words. The Guardian Ad Litem, the one person expected to remain unbiased, had just acknowledged what many were afraid to admit. Her voice softened further as she continued. "I think this court needs to consider not just the evidence, but the emotional well-being of both parents. Because what's happening here isn't about winning, it's about healing. Those words hung heavy in the air. Martell stood there, breathing hard, his eyes glistening but fixed forward, as if trying to hold back tears. Across the room, his attorney lowered his head, and for the first time, the courtroom felt less like a battleground, and more like a confessional. In that moment, the Guardian Ad Litem didn't just shock the court, she changed its entire tone. She reminded everyone that beneath the legal filings and the televised drama, there were children, there was love, and there was a man who had lost almost everything but was still fighting for his family. For a long moment, the courtroom was utterly still. It was the kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, it presses on it, heavy and unspoken. The judge, usually quick to regain control, said nothing. The attorneys, who had been preparing for another round of legal sparring, simply stared at their papers, unsure how to continue. Martell stood motionless, the fire that had fueled his outburst now replaced by visible exhaustion. His chest rose and fell in slow, heavy breaths, his eyes locked on the floor, as if realizing the weight of what had just unfolded. Across the aisle, Shari sat quietly, her expression unreadable, a mix of shock, sympathy, and disbelief. She'd seen Martell angry before, but not like this. This wasn't about ego or pride anymore. This was about heartbreak. The Guardian Ad Litem remained standing, her earlier words still echoing in everyone's minds. She glanced at Martell once more, almost as if silently apologizing for seeing him in such a raw, vulnerable state. The judge finally broke the silence, his tone firm but surprisingly gentle. "Mr. Holt," he said, "this court recognizes the emotion in your statement, but I urge you, let's keep this focused on what matters most, your children." Martell nodded slowly, his voice barely above a whisper when he replied, "That's all I've ever wanted." Even the court reporter, who had seen hundreds of cases, countless breakdowns, paused for a moment before resuming her typing. Outside the courtroom, word began to spread like wildfire. Reporters whispered about the Martell Holt moment, and social media lit up with speculation. Some called it a meltdown, others called it a breakthrough. But inside that room, those who witnessed it knew it was something more. It was a man caught between his past and his future, a father stripped of his public armor, standing bare in his truth. And as Martell slowly sat down, shoulders heavy but spirit still defiant, the atmosphere shifted once again. The chaos was over, but the emotional scars, the kind that don't show up in court records, would linger long after the gavel struck. It didn't take long for the outside world to catch fire. Within hours, whispers from inside the courtroom turned into trending fans, bloggers, and entertainment sites flooded social media with posts titled, "Martell Holt loses it in court," and "Guardian Ad Litem breaks silence in shocking custody scene." Clips, quotes, and eyewitness accounts spread like wildfire, each version more dramatic than the last. On Twitter, fans were divided, some defending Martell with heartfelt messages, calling him a father pushed to his limits, while others accused him of letting his emotions cloud his judgment. TikTok flooded with edits of past love and marriage, Huntsville scenes, drawing parallels between the man on TV and the man in court. "He's always been passionate," one fan said, "but this time, it felt real. Painful." Human. Entertainment blogs called it one of the most intense courtroom breakdowns in reality TV history, even though the cameras weren't rolling. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Supporters wrote long posts about fatherhood, redemption, and the weight of public scrutiny. Critics questioned whether Martell's tears were genuine or strategic. And through it all, the Guardian Ad Litem's words, "This is not anger. This is pain," became a viral quote, shared across reels, stories, and podcasts. YouTube commentators dissected every angle. Some called it the moment Martell Holt found his humanity, while others labeled it a desperate act from a man losing control. Even former cast members and insiders began to speak out, hinting that this was the culmination of years of pressure and emotional exhaustion. It wasn't just gossip anymore, it was a cultural moment. A man once known for charm and confidence had become a symbol of public vulnerability, forcing everyone to question how much pain hides behind a composed smile. And as the world debated whether to condemn or forgive him, one truth became clear. Martell Holt's courtroom explosion wasn't just a legal headline, it was a mirror, reflecting how fame, family, and heartbreak can collide in the rawest, most human way possible. When the clip of Martell's courtroom outburst began circulating online, experts didn't waste time weighing in. Body language analysts, therapists, and family court specialists dissected every frame, every gesture, every tone shift, every tremble in his voice. What they found, many said, wasn't the behavior of a man trying to perform for sympathy. It was the eruption of someone who'd been holding his pain in for far too long. According to one psychologist, you can see it in the way he loses composure midst. That isn't manipulation. That's a man whose emotions have finally outrun his control. Another expert added, Martell's anger isn't about hatred. It's rooted in heartbreak, guilt, and loss. You can feel that he's fighting ghosts as much as he's fighting for custody. Even his body language told a story. The clenched fists that loosened only when he spoke about his children. The way his shoulders collapsed right after the Guardian Ad Litem's words. A physical release. Like the tension had finally broken through years of silence. Analysts replayed that single moment. The way his eyes darted downward. The slight quiver in his lips, explaining that it was the shift from defensiveness to vulnerability. For a man once known for confidence and control, that moment of collapse was almost poetic. Meanwhile, family court experts pointed out that Martell's eruption revealed something larger about the emotional toll of public custody battles. When your personal life becomes entertainment, one attorney said, you start to lose your humanity in the process. The courtroom becomes the only place where you can still fight to be seen as a parent, not a character. And that's what made the moment so haunting. This wasn't just about Martell Holt, it was about the pain of every parent who's ever been judged. Every man afraid to show emotion, every family torn apart under public scrutiny. The experts agreed on one thing. His outburst might have changed how the court viewed him, but it also changed how the world understood him. For once, Martell wasn't a headline or a hashtag, he was human. When the noise finally faded and the courtroom emptied, what lingered wasn't the shouting, the tension, or the legal drama, it was the silence. The kind that only comes after truth has been spoken, raw and unfiltered. For all the headlines that painted Martell Holt as arrogant or explosive, this moment stripped everything away. What the world saw in that courtroom wasn't a celebrity losing control. It was a father breaking under the weight of love, regret, and public scrutiny. Behind every raised voice and trembling hand was a man who had lost nearly everything, yet still refused to stop fighting for the only thing that mattered, his children. And while the internet argued, judged, and speculated, those who truly listened heard something different. They heard the pain of a man who had been forced to defend his heart in a place built for logic. They saw a human being, flawed and desperate, but still standing. The Guardian Ad Litem's words echoed like a quiet truth in the background. This isn't anger, this is pain. And maybe that was the lesson hidden in all the chaos, that sometimes, behind the drama and the headlines, there's a story of redemption waiting to be understood. Because when the cameras are gone and the gossip fades, one truth remains, beneath the fame and the fury. Martell Holt is still just a father, trying to be heard, trying to heal, and trying to hold on to the only thing that still gives his life meaning. The courtroom saw chaos, but the world saw heartbreak. So now, after everything you've heard, we have to ask, was Martell Holt truly out of line for what happened in that courtroom? Or was this the breaking point of a man who's been misunderstood for far too long? Was his outburst a loss of control, or the only way he could finally be heard in a world that never stops judging him? Let us know what you think in the comments below, because this story isn't just about Martell. It's about every parent, every person, who's ever been pushed to the edge trying to prove their love.